What kind of questions are important to ask when a family is looking at a memory care facility for their loved one? Like what kinds of activities and therapies are available? What's a good
So
checklist?
I'm a social worker. So for me, it's about the connection. It's about the
Hmm.
feeling you get right when you walk in the door. And that's just for
Okay.
me. That would be something that I would want if I'm greeted warmly, if the building looks nice and smells nice. And again, I'm not talking about a brand new spanking building with all the bells and whistles. I tell families all the time, you can get absolutely incredible care at a building that's been around for 35 years. It still has wallpaper on the walls.
Hmm.
Because a lot of times what those buildings are doing is they're not updating because they are spending their money on the care and the staff that they're hiring. So it does not
Quality
have to
care.
be quality care, right? It does not have to be some
Yeah,
brand
that's
new
important.
facility.
Right.
So for me though, it's the connection. But I would, if I was the family, I would ask about staffing ratios. What do you do when you have a call off? Do you use an
Mm.
agency? I would ask about programs and activities. I would ask about how your staff is trained, and then I would usually do two visits. I would do one that is scheduled because you really want to be able to sit down and have your initial meeting with the person within the community that can tell you a lot about the community. If you
Sure.
stop in for your initial visit on 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, you're likely going to get a nurse or someone that's working the floor. And while they are probably very knowledgeable, they're not going to know everything. They're not going to know probably about the rates,
Okay.
about availability. They're not necessarily going to know some of the real nuances. So I would
Okay.
absolutely schedule your first visit with, usually it's going to be the admissions person. In my case, it's the community relations director. It might even be the executive director. And then if you really like that building, then I would stop in maybe a second time unannounced just to see what it's like. Again,
Mm.
not to catch them doing anything wrong, but just to get a
Sure.
feel for what it's like when someone arrives unannounced and unexpected. You
Oh, I
should
like
still
that. Yeah.
receive a really warm welcoming. You should still be able to say, hey, can I walk in and just see what a meal is like? If they say, oh,
Hmm.
no, 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 then that would be a head scratcher for me. But if they say, yeah, sure, come on in. I can't necessarily sit with you for the whole time, but yeah, come on in and I can get you seated and you
Yeah.
can kind of watch how the staff does things. Those would be some of the things that I would ask. And then finally, I would, if they, when they talk about rates, I would find out if what's included in the rate, if they have levels of
Mm.
care, what do those levels of care look like? What does each one cost? And if they're talking about an a la carte pricing structure, which is totally fine, what does I would like a handout of what each of those a la carte services cost. If you're
Right.
taking medication to my mom, 4 times a day, what is that going to cost? And then finally, the last thing would be, I always tell a family, please find out from the community what would cause them to discharge your family member. It may be nothing.
Mm.
There may not be anything that would cause them to discharge your family member, although there has to be a parameter.
Okay.
So for example, for
What are some
us,
typical
yeah,
things?
yeah.
Yeah. As we
So
say, give us an example.
let's say it's some other communities. Sometimes what causes a community to discharge a loved one when they become a two-person assist. So
Mm.
the way that I explain to families, think about it this way. If you're in a memory care community and there are 36 people living in that unit, in that memory care unit, and the staffing ratios are 1 to 18. So that means there'll have
Okay.
two caregivers there for those 36 residents. Kelly, if your
Okay.
mom then requires two people to give her a shower, and that shower
Mm.
takes a good hour, right?
Hmm.
Then that means those other 35 residents are unsupervised because those
Right.
two caregivers are providing that shower to your mom. So it doesn't
Mm.
mean it's a bad building. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means that they have parameters around their staffing ratios. So a family might say, so Kelly, at your memory care, what would cause my mom to be discharged? If they say when your mom becomes a two-person assist, that will be a reason that
Mm.
we would have to ask your mom to leave. Sometimes the follow-up to that would be, Your mom could stay, though, if you provided outside caregivers to help. And again, for some families, that's not financially feasible.
Sure. Would that be in special circumstances, though, Anne? Like maybe mom only needs that two hands assist for a shower, but all throughout the day, the rest of the day, she just needs one person.
Yeah, it could be. It's really going to depend on the community. It really is.